just following the rules, following the same statements here. And then we had balance, and which was numeric 12,2. Right. So after we had the last one, we just close it with the semicolon, and it says query okay. And now 0 rows affected, but essentially it has created a new table. So if we check the show tables, now we can see that inside our database, earlier it said that it was an empty set, but now inside our database, now it says the tables in bank, and we have one particular table, that is the account table. So if we want, we can also ask it to describe this particular table. So for example, we can create another table. So this was your account table example, and that would have your account ID, branch name, and balance that we were working with earlier. And you can understand that we can also create another table that is depositor with this thing. So let's do that if you want. So can you guys help me in and tell me, if I want to create this depositor table in my database, what should I type in? Create table, right? Depositor. Then what do I do? Let's say I'm trying to create a table in my bank database, the table for the depositor, this particular table here. Any ideas, anyone? Customer name, varchar 20. Okay, perfect. So Taha, could you tell us why do we want varchar 20? Exactly, because not all customer names would require 20 characters, and in general we would like our customer names to be slightly larger than 20 characters, but this is perfectly fine. Now what about account ID? What should this be?
Care.
Char 10, right? Like last time, because we also had account ID char 10 for this table, and we know that we are going to use the same as our foreign keys for this one. Char 10, and it creates a new table for us. So if we show the tables now we have two tables, that is account and depositor, and both of them are in my database bank. We can also ask it to describe a particular database to us. So for example, describe account, and that basically tells you the database schema. So we have account ID and type, account ID and type, account ID and type. It allows null values, yes. Keys, none of these are primary keys. What is the default value? Default value is null, and so on, right? Okay. Any questions so far?
Can you scroll back up just a little bit?
Do you want me to reduce the font size of this thing a bit? That help?
No, you're good right there. I just wanted to see
Okay.
what you had put in there for character name and stuff. Give me one
Okay.
second to take a scroll back down just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, perfect.
So essentially this one was just the same as we had in our slides, that basically created a new table called account, and this one was to create a new table called depositor. Essentially the same thing. Our depositor table had two attributes, customer name and account ID. One was varchar 20, one was char 10. Make sense? Can I close it, Edward?
Yep, you're good. Sorry, thank you.
Okay, thank you. No worries. Okay, so That is how we create our tables, and that is how we can describe our tables. So essentially the keyword describe. So note that I did use some keywords that you might not find in the slides, but essentially it is, if you look into the book or the SQL manual, you will find this. So show databases gives you the list of all databases in your current server. So once we added the bank database, show databases showed the bank database. And we also had the show tables keyword, which lists out all the tables that we have in a particular database bank, right? So in show tables, it shows us all the list of tables that we have in a bank, and describe a particular table with the table name essentially gives you the schema of that particular table. Okay, okay, okay. Now, we can also, now that we have created a table, we also need to insert values into our table as well. So insert into account would insert the following rows into the table account with the values A301, comma New York, comma 350. And note that it follows the same order as our table was created. So account ID, branch name, and balance is the same as uh, account ID, branch name, and balance. So if we copy this, and Leon, very important question. We do not have a primary key in this table as of yet. We will talk about this in a second. Very important catch. Okay. Paste. Copy. So insert into account values A301 New York 350. That gets updated. So now this won't show you anything yet, but if I add in another, no, not this one. If I add in another line, so another row to my table, essentially the first line added the New York account to my information to my account table. This one adds the Seattle account information to my table. I will come to this particular command in just a second, but just to show you, select star from account gives you the details of the account, that is account ID, branch name, and balance, right? So this is the table account in our database bank, right? We will come to the select star thing in a second. It will come a bit later, but essentially that is how you add statements or insert values into your database as well. So you can insert your values one row at a time, and note that your strings here are all single quotes, right? Okay. Moving on. We can also specify which attributes we want to insert our data values into. So insert into account, account ID, comma, branch name, comma, balance, and then we have the values here. It's the same thing as we did last time, but this also allows us to interchange the attribute names, and we can have account ID, balance, branch name with the values A301, 350 New York, right? Might be useful, just another way of using this. Okay, now we have the Seattle account, and coming back to Leon's question, we had the Seattle account that had the account ID 350, and no, we did not. We had 307. Okay, let's add one thing more. Give me a sec. Let me add another account in the Seattle account. That is basically A350 Seattle 800. So A350 Seattle 800 gets me the new account, this particular account here. And then let's say that we want to add this particular tuple. Give me a sec. I basically need to copy a million times. Yes. So now we are saying we had this particular tuple here, A350 Seattle 800, and then we are trying to insert into account this particular value, A350 with the account ID, branch name Los Angeles, balance 195. Should we be able to do this? Yes or no? I have one yes.
Yes.
No, not yet.
I have one no, I have two no's and two yes. Why yes, why no? I can, but I shouldn't. Okay. Justin, tell me why can I do this and but why should I not? Because there is no primary key. So we were
Exactly.
assuming in our previous example, exactly right. So we were assuming in our previous examples that our account ID was our primary key. But in this scenario, since we did not specify our primary key, it is totally fine with this thing with duplicate values. And it is completely happy in showing you two results with uh, the same account IDs because we did not specify anything like that. So let's talk about primary keys. So if we want to create a table that has a primary key, basically our own account table, we would specify our table schema like this: create table account, account ID, branch name, balance, blah, blah, blah. And then primary key is our account ID. Now, if we did the same, pull the same antics as we did this time with the same account ID, now it would give you an error that there is some constraint issue with your unresolved constraint issue with your insert, and we cannot do this because we have specified that this is a primary key and the requirement is all primary keys should be unique, right? Okay. We can also have multiple attributes together to be a primary key. Again, we can say customer name and account ID together is our primary key, right? So let's do this. Let's say drop. So that drops my table. That also means that I just have the one table now. And if I want to create a new table, let's create a table, create table visitor. I'm going to use the same thing as you guys said, cast customer name, 20. Let's say, oh, you used varchar, right? Varchar 20 and account ID char 10. And now we can specify that, you know what, account ID and customer name together are our primary key. So we can say primary key brackets account key. Right? So it basically creates a new table that has the primary key as customer name and account ID. So if I do show tables, it gives you now two tables, account and depositor. If I ask it to describe it says that both customer name and account ID are primary keys, right? So they can't be repeated. And note that both those attributes together are primary keys. Our